Hey, welcome to the best of everything. I am Ruben Paul, and across from me is my brother.
Jumping over, okay.
From a Portuguese mother.
Anyway.
My partner in crime. The thorn in my side.
Oh, I love it.
The guy who annoys me on a daily basis, even when we're not doing the show.
But who makes you better? You heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Johnny
It's God
Sanchez.
talking. Yeah.
What's up, bro? How are you, man?
What's up, bro? Yeah.
And we have a special guest today.
Absolutely.
I've known this guy for I don't know how many years. It's been a while.
Like what would you, if you had a guess? Are we talking 05, 08?
No, we met when I hosted the Hong Kong International Comedy Competition.
Love to brag first. Go ahead.
I mean, I hosted it.
Yeah. No.
So,
I just. No,
I wasn't bragging. I'm just telling you where I met him, man.
Well, you just said I just met him in China.
It's
but
not
that's
bragging.
right.
You know,
Okay.
it's true.
Right.
But that had to be in what year?
Can I just say?
Yeah.
2012.
2012. Wow, we met.
But it doesn't. It's not that long ago in real time, but it feels like
Feels much longer.
we toured around China together a bunch.
Yeah,
of times.
but anyway, he's one of the most interesting guys that I've met. He's lived he lived in China for what, 15 years?
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
He lived in China for 12 years.
Wow.
All the tours that I did through China, Turner and his old partner Andy booked these tours, and we just became really good friends over the years. He's a comic also. Ladies and gentlemen, Turner Sparks.
What's up? Yes. Can I clap for myself?
Yeah.
You can clap for yourself.
Do you do that on stage?
You got to be your own best cheerleader.
Do you do that
right?
on stage? Would you do?
When I come up? Yeah, come on. It's the crowd
Me,
mimics
man,
what you do.
me.
You know? Laugh at my own jokes a lot.
Absolutely.
But Turner's an interesting guy because a lot of times when you travel and do international gigs, you know, the number one question that I get from a lot of people is, do they speak English? Do they understand you over there? Turner's like the whitest guy you ever want to meet that lived in China for 12 years. And, you know, his demo makes up not just, you know, white Americans, but, you know, people from all different walks of life that they call expats that live in these places.
Yeah, and Chinese people.
Yeah, and Chinese people at these shows.
Yeah.
Who are fluent in English, right?
Oh, well,
Sometimes not.
Oh, sometimes not.
No, well, they are at like the shows where they have to pay. Because if you're throwing down money, you want to make sure you understand.
yeah.
But we had a weekly open mic that it got caught, like people in the city in Shanghai kind of caught on to the fact that this was a place you could go and just like practice your listening skills in English.
Hilarious.
So everyone was just bombing.
Yeah, because people couldn't understand.
So like that would happen like once a month. There was some group that would always come. So you'd watch the first 3 or 4 comics, and if everyone's bombing, you'd figure it out. And then I would just ditch my act and just talk to them in Chinese.
Oh, that's right, because you're fluent.
Yeah,
You're fluent Mandarin.
But
Yeah,
it didn't help. Like I wasn't working on a Chinese act because I always knew I was gonna come back at some point.
I thought you were gonna tell me you were watching everybody bomb, so then you just were up there doing like
Just
miming and physical comedy only.
Well, it's really interesting because when you're performing there, like especially, you know, he's doing those open mics, but when we come and do the headliner shows, you know, the shows are packed if it's me. And, the shows are packed, and then you'll have like people in the front row, like you'll say a punchline, everybody's laughing, and then you'll see one person like whispering to another person, and at first it kind of throws you off, and then you realize that they're translating the joke.
Translating.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and we had to get to the point where we would tell people that would fly in. We'd have to tell them that in advance. Like if somebody's talking, there's a good chance they're translating.
Yeah.
Because 2 or 3 times whatever the comic would just start yelling at these people, and the whole crowd knew they were translating, but the comic didn't know what was going on,
man.
and then they just hated the comic.
That sounds like something I would do.
Oh, 100% you do
Oh
that.
my god.
And so we started warning people. We're like, give it a beat. Maybe they are an asshole, but maybe they're just translating.
But also, does that require the comics to then almost do, you know, when they do interviews and somebody's in a you know, like on the Today Show or these other places where they're talking to a news person and there's that, so how's it going? And then there's that delay. Did you guys have to do a delay to let the person translate, or you just go same tempo?
You know, I just kept going, and I just ignored the translation.
Oh man, I feel like I would slow it myself down.
So that's what. So I started out there. The first time
you started comedy in China.
In China,
Yeah.
Were you fluent in Mandarin yet?
No, but we were doing it mostly in English.
Okay, right.
And then doing like the thing where you say like a punchline in the,
a word here and there.
Yeah, and mix it in. But so my first 6 years of stand-up were in China. I would come back and visit and do guest sets around the U.S.
Wow.
But basically in China. So then I moved to New York 3 years ago. And when I got there, I realized that my pacing was way slower than everyone.
Interesting.
Because he started there.
Because I think you do develop a slower pace.
Slower.
Because it's not just the Chinese people. There's almost everyone's second language, like except the Americans and British, which might be like 25-30%. And the Canadians.
Yeah. And the Canadians.
But
don't forget the Canadians.
But there's the Germans and the Russians and like everybody, French. And so you just develop at a slower pace.
Yeah, but the people who are actually translating, for me, I kind of equated it to, like sometimes you're having a set and you're killing and one person's not laughing. I'm not going to direct my whole set to the person that's not laughing. You know, I'm going to, they got to catch up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I kind of felt like that. And they do. And I think, you know, I'd make jokes about it. Like I'd call it back, but I wouldn't change my pacing, you know, at all.
So, see, I would use that to my advantage if I came back into the States and I was having not a good set. Then I would just go, translating. Everybody, translating.
Okay.
They wouldn't know what I was talking about, but I would use that. Translating? You guys translating? Anybody? Translating.
Oh, I would say my
No, we in Long Beach, motherfucker. Ain't nobody translating that bullshit.
And then I would say, that's what I'm talking about. I don't speak that Long Beach lingo. I don't speak the LBC. But that's pretty fascinating.
Did you ever get this? Did you ever get this, Ruben, where Chinese people were very into telling you what percentage of your act they understood? It would happen to us. So after the show, they'd be like, "That was great. I understood 45%."
Oh wow!
And then the next time, this time I understood 60%.
No, that's interesting.
Either way, they had a good time.
Yeah,
they were like impressed with themselves that they understood whatever percentage.
Yeah, I never got that.
Joke.
I guess I was too busy taking pictures and signing autographs.
By the way, we were sold out every weekend, in and out.
Well, you know, it's also you got to understand, and Ruben and I have gone through this already.
Yo, I sell tickets in China, son.
It's also
actually Ruben did
in China, son.
It's also
Ruben did sell off.
They do go, but listen, part of it, it's not his name. It's him. It's them going, oh, black comedian. Go be funny.
There's been other black comedians. Tell him, Turner. Tell him.
You want me to name names?
I mean, you can tell some of them who came there.
Oh, well, there's other people who came. We had Will Vince, Wally Collins, Dwayne Perkins.
I know those guys. Oh, yeah, I know those guys.
But, I mean,
Kyle Grooms came out a couple times.
Here's the thing, to be perfect.
But you didn't sell out these are people coming back to see you again.
He would do well coming back.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. First time they didn't know who he was.
Right. But no, you would tell me. I remember you telling me, hey man, it's getting better and better each time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think ultimately when people used to ask me like, hey, will you refer me to the gig in China? I think
say no.
Yeah, I would say no to certain people because I wouldn't want to set them up to fail because there's some great comics who probably wouldn't do well over there just because of the skill set you might need doing an hour, because you can't do like a 40-minute set in bail or 45 minutes. You have to do an hour plus.
Yeah, he would, because remember you would bring that up to me like, hey man, if you want me, I go, let me.
You would do well. It.
Yeah, you'd have done it.
Because what it took was, which I think you're probably getting to. I don't know if I'm cutting you off here, but it took an act, but also an act that like you couldn't do jokes about like whatever
Glendale and
like local material, or even like someone came out with a Foot Locker joke that was just bombing. And they didn't rotate out of it because we don't have Foot Locker. And the joke was like about like, hey, all right, referee, settle down. It was like a reference that if they didn't know the place in the first place, there's no reference. Right. And so then it took like being able to rotate out of that and go into crowd work. Yeah. So anyone who could do crowd work plus an act, I think was like the thing that worked.
Yeah, that's the thing that worked the best because
he always does a great.
One thing, and me and Johnny talk about this. I remember when I first started, one thing that the club managers used to say is to headline you have to have more than 45 minutes. Yeah. You know, people think, oh, I got 45, but if some of that shit ain't hitting, you know, that time starts to.
When you get to a different, I mean, even in a regional wise,
yes,
you know, your stuff gets great in the big cities, and all of a sudden you're in you're in Iowa, and you're in these areas where these people they're not as culturally with the times, maybe at the, you know what I mean? It's just their little community, whatever. These other things that you used to do in LA and New York and Chicago, you got, all of a sudden it's not a hit. Remember you and I would always talk about it, and then we would I know for me, I have to readjust some of my ethnic material, going, oh, they don't even, they don't have any Persians out here. They don't have any, you know what I mean? So get rid of that. And so you always have to have that extra time.
Yeah. And when I came visited LA for the first time, I think I stayed with you maybe. The first time I came to do spots.
Yeah.
I remember I didn't know I never considered what an Armenian might be, or what like the stereotypes of an Armenian might be. And I remember seeing a guy go up and just destroying with all Armenian material.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
But
Were you at the Haha or something?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And it was
absolutely
killing the room. I think you and Dwayne Perkins.
Yeah, and then you would go to a place like China and it wouldn't. So I think to headline, I'm not saying that there's good headliners who wouldn't do well. It's just if you just have an act that you stick to and can't really shift gears, you would probably be miserable, because there's shit happens on these tours, man. Yeah. Because you're going to some of these towns and you just never know what to expect sometimes.
Well, yeah, it was a collection of Andy and I, the guy I started with, kind of started this open mic in Shanghai and Suzhou, where I was living, which is down the road from Suzhou. Then that turned into a tour, which turned into a club. But the tour only happened because we would take like a weekend and just go 3 hours west into the middle of China, find a town, stay there for the weekend, go to every bar in town, and try to figure out which one could work for a monthly show.
Right.
And so that's what, on the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you'd be going from town to town, essentially doing a bar show.
Yeah.
For that town, but the bar show would only happen once a month, and it was the biggest thing to happen for the expats in that town. That month.
Oh man,
so I packed.
Yeah.
But it's a bar show, and then on Friday and Saturday you'd be at our club on the weekend, which was more like predictable a little bit.
Yeah.
But the bar show.
But you never knew what was going to happen at the
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So you're in like the Omaha of China, doing it for these British guys who maybe they've been there for 25 years, and then they're whoever their girlfriend is, or like a Chinese, whatever mix of Chinese people who are there on business.
And the thing is, you still have the same elements that you deal with here. So you have the language barrier, you have the country barrier, and you have alcohol involved. Yeah. You have assholes. You have, you have all these things. So
got to be on your feet. Got to be on your feet. Yeah.
You don't have a lot in your bag of tricks. And again, going back to the black comic thing, and one thing that me and Turner talked about, and one thing that I'm proud of going over there, it's like when I go to a certain place, I go, okay, what are the jokes that a black comedian would do in China? And you could come up with those really quickly, and then I would just do the opposite. Because you just know, like, hey, I'm the only black guy in China. Those would be the jokes that would work. But, did Will Sylvans do it? Did Dwayne do it? Did Wally do it? So I always wanted to do my own thing. And I think for me, being Haitian, and that being my point of view.
Yeah, a little more of your point of view.
You know what I mean? That really connected me, because a lot of them understand what it's like to be a fish out of water, being away from family. The same things, no matter if you're from Russia or Germany or you're Irish or you're Canadian or whatever. It was a theme that worked for me well over there.
Yeah, the last thing that I remember bombing pretty hard was any American political material.
Oh, yeah.
Because they just didn't know. So one guy was like it was our mistake booking, but it was like a political act, and he came over and he was doing stuff about like the Dems in the House, and like the Senate, and what we learned quickly is everyone knows the president, whoever that might be. So I was there from 2004 to 2016.
Okay.
They don't know the vice president or anything below that, and they don't know what a Democrat or Republican is.
Okay.
And so any like one side or the other, Democrat, Republican thing, it's like the reference didn't work at all.
Yeah, well,
that was a long week.
Well, speaking of politics,
poor guy. But I feel for any. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I also feel for any comic who ends up in a spot where they're like, well. Because he didn't. He didn't have any other.
That was
gear
it.
That was it.
I remember this guy was like killing in America with it at the time. So we're like, this is an easy like sell.
Well, even when Turner and Andy would ask me to refer people, they were like, "Hey, how do you think this guy would do there?" Because I had been going to Hong Kong for a few years before I'd even gone to China.
Now, is Andy? He's Asian, right?
No,
he's Australian.
He's Australian.
Oh, he was Australian.
Okay. Yeah. So he and I both ended up there within. We were 50 miles away in 2 different cities. I started an open mic, which was like the first open mic in the country. And then he started one like 10 months later in the next city over. Neither one of us was aware of each other.
Okay.
But within 2 months of his, mine had been going a year, and within 2 months of his, someone knew both of us and was like, "You guys need to meet."
Yeah, I'm white. You're white.
Because there was like,
let's join forces.
Yeah, it was mostly that we were white. It had nothing to do with comedy.
No,
it was
exactly.
Just like, let's start a white society.
Twin powers.
Whites.
So,
Whites need to stick together.
What were you expecting on, like when you said, "All right, I'm going to do an open mic," you had people were going to just show up and sign up, right?
No.
Comics? No.
There was no comics. There was no one had done stand up. There was like,
it was just you that night?
The first night. No. It was me and one friend decided we wanted to do it.
Okay.
And our friend had recently opened a bar, and he was like, "I'll put in a stage if you guys will do it." It was at the Drunken Clam.
Okay.
Yeah. It's about the size of this studio.
First of all, the Drunken Clam.
It's named after the
if you even knew
Family
some of the
Guy.
places that we
The one
perform.
guy?
In the Family Guy, the name of the bar they go to is called Drunken Clam. Everything out there is like named after.
Hilarious.
It's all taken from something else.
Yeah.
So funny.
One place is called Carbon, and I 2 months after I performed there, Turner Sparks, it burned down. They were like, "You did it to us, bro." That was in Hangzhou.
Remember, I can't remember what city we were in, but it was a big deal because some local bar found out we were doing a comedy show, and they tried to shut our show down.
That was in Hangzhou.
Hangzhou, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we had to move to Carbon. And then actually it was a good move. The first place shut us down because the second place burned down. So they were probably happy. But yeah, I got banned. Sorry, I'm skipping around here.
No, that's all right.
go ahead.
We do it all the time.
But so I started the thing. Andy started open mic. We got put together, and then we started doing these shows. So I had to convince my 2 roommates. Me and one other guy wanted to do it with me the first ever time.
Okay.
And then I had to convince my 2 other roommates to do it just so we could have a show. And then we did it was unnecessarily long. I think we did 15 minutes each. 4 people,
Right.
with notes.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
We didn't know the rules. We didn't know that you needed a light for a year, to tell people when to get off stage. And so we would have these, after a couple months, a lot of people wanted to try it.
Could you imagine those long, horrible sets you guys were doing?
It was a disaster. It was awful, but it was fun. It was packed. It stood 50 people. There was no seats, so it was like a punk show. You're just yelling at people. It was a lot of just yelling at people.
That's
There
hilarious.
wasn't a lot of jokes that first
Dude,
year.
I remember.
So who decided? How did you? Who's the person that went, "Hey, we're supposed to have a light, by the way, or there's supposed to be a light"?
So it literally took us 13 or 14 months. Because Andy, when he started a year later, he didn't know for the first couple months either. Oh, you know what happened? This girl, Tammy, I think, moved from Atlanta. She'd been doing open mics for 2 or 3 years in Atlanta, and she moved out to teach English, heard we existed, and she came and she's like, "What are you guys doing?" Because sometimes once it got popular, people wanted to perform. We also didn't say no to anybody. Anyone could perform. You could do as long as you wanted.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It was so shows are 2 or 3 hours.
So did she come and go, and you guys know there's supposed to be a light for the comics to get.
Yeah, I think so. And then we're like, "What? No." But we're like, "Oh, that makes sense." And she's like, "Yeah, shows are supposed to be 90 minutes.
I mean,
especially if it's bad, less, right?
First of all, especially open mic
Hour
night.
10.
You can, 60 to 70 minutes is good enough. But you know what I mean? That's hilarious. So were you guys going up with notes then?
Yeah.
Because how would you remember? Because I remember those early days, and even just trying to memorize that 5 sometimes.
So tough.
So tough. So you guys obviously were going up with notes.
With notes. Yeah.
Notepad.
And the rules, all the bars had this rule. So the bar in Suzhou, my city, and the bar in Shanghai, these shows were packed because there was nothing to do. Okay. So imagine 1800s Wild West, when there's nothing to do in town except world's oldest profession.
Yeah.
That's it. Right? Very similar.
Yeah.
And so then the only entertainment was once a month, you'd be like, "I know this guy and he's trying comedy. Let's go watch it." So the bars would be packed, it'd be free to get in. So then you would get unlimited alcohol if you performed.
Oh.
So
you're getting
trash.
And you're getting people go, "The hell." It's almost like it was you know what it was? It was like a karaoke night, basically.
Like a karaoke
because
night.
people were going, "You know what? I'll do it."
Yeah, I'll do it for the
say,
booze.
"Hey, if you come up and sing at a karaoke night, you get unlimited drinks. I would give it a shot.
Exactly.
And I don't sing, and I've never even tried it.
Yeah.
But if it was unlimited drinks, for me, I would eventually go up and start singing something.
100%. So that's what happened. So there'd be like,
so it was the Wild West.
just 60-year-old guys who were like the GM at like the Bosch plant or the GE
We're
plant
trying
down the road.
stand-up?
Yeah, because they're like, screw it. I don't know. Why not? No one was doing it like for the idea of I'm going to do it professionally. It was literally just to entertain our friends.
Oh my God.
So in one sense, it was like the purest way to start.
I mean,
there was no sense of like, maybe I'm going to make it.
Wow, that's pretty.
Like not even close.
And were any of those nights, those early, probably not, but did you get any of those recorded, those early?
The very first one is.
Oh, the very first one?
Yeah. I still have it.
So you have your very first time on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
it's
bummed.
total.
I didn't get that for a few before I got one. They some of the clubs wouldn't allow that. They're like, you can't record in the open mic night or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't have my very first, which man, damn.
I mean, you don't want to watch it. I mean, I guess on one end you want to have it.
But I would just like to have it.
Yeah, you want to have it.
Just to check it out and, so that's pretty incredible that you're able to have.
I still have it. Yeah. And it's like there's no laws against smoking there. So I remember
It's
after
kind of like the old when they used to allow smoking in the clubs and whatnot.
It's horrible because when you're on stage, you're higher than everybody. So the smoke's like goes to you.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And so finally, after a couple years, so the first year was that every show was packed, everyone sucked, everyone was hammered.
And the people, were they responding in a way of like, were they just enjoying you guys trying it?
Yes.
Yeah,
it was like very
they got a kick out of
kid
it.
gloves. Yeah, they got a kick out of it. They thought it was crazy that we were trying it, but you could get like real react. It was real. They were paying attention. It was like comedy club reactions.
Okay.
But their level of expectations were zero.
Oh.
So they were just happy to like be out
once a month.
doing something. It was once a month.
And is that something that was there somebody though, by the way, that was because usually there's always that one comic who kills all that just was naturally killing.
There's one girl, Audrey Murray. She was super good. Because I don't know if she had a background, but she was the only one like writing real jokes. All of us were like, this happened to me today. Let's see if I can make this funny.
I remember all that.
In the process.
Guys are going to believe what happened to me, man, yesterday. I remember those. Yeah, we did those in open
and it never
mics,
kind of goes anywhere, really.
Yeah.
So she was doing like almost Mitch Hedberg-ish, like set up, punch, set up, punch, set up, punch. She's an author now. She's like a published author.
I was just going to ask. So
really
is she somebody who continued to do it? Or a
lot of people continued.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So she did that. This other guy, Joe Schaefer, is with me in New York. We have a show together at New York Comedy Club.
Okay.
Andy Curtin, who started it, is the head of Live Nation Comedy for Asia. Wow. So when like Kevin Hart goes, he runs those tours, like the stadium tours.
Yeah, Kevin Chappelle.
Yeah, all those.
Wow.
William Childress is in Atlanta, still doing it.
Willie, I remember him.
Yeah.
He opened up for me one time.
Yeah. So he's in Atlanta doing really well. In Atlanta doing stand-up.
So a lot of the people that started there are still doing, but I asked if there was that one. There's always that one comic.
There was this girl, Audrey Murray.
Yeah, he was talking about
good.
Who she was the only one doing.
I think I remember. Do I remember her?
Maybe redhead. She might have. You know what? She was also one of the earliest to kind of stop doing it.
Oh, I see. And then got into
writing, she's an author and all that kind of stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but then like the second year, the crowds kind of went away because we sucked, and then we had to actually like get everything together.
But he was funny because he was saying she was the one who was kind of like set up, punch, and then you remember these days, they were all just like talking about what happened to them that day, and
she had real jokes.
Yeah,
she like spent her time actually like writing jokes with hard punchlines.
Yeah,
we had zero. I don't think I had a hard punchline for like a year.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of like yelling at people, like "Shut up, Josh!" You know, like you knew everyone in the crowd.
After a while, it's the same people coming all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and like even when Ruben would come, it's the same people because a lot of these expat towns you're hitting, there's 300 people total who might even be interested in what you're doing. And so a lot of people are out of town or they can't come that night. So you're getting kind of the same 100 people.
And that's another part of the pressure of when you come over there to do an hour.
So when you go back,
you got to be able to have a new hour.
Yeah.
And I think a good skill set that helps you also is the ability to write quickly. So if I'm in a town, like I'd ask Turner a bunch of questions or Andy a bunch of questions, and I'd kind of walk around, and then just find things in the city that I find interesting, and then go on stage and talk about it.
And I'm sure you took a few of mine, I'm sure.
Community bits.
Yeah, community
took some
bits.
Portuguese material over there.
Not back then.
Oh, I listened to the pod. Congratulations on that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I was just out there.
Wow, you're congratulating him on not being Mexican? Whoa, that's
no, it's good to learn about yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
This dude, man.
It's better to know than not know.
Yeah, you're right. He's been a fraud all these
and you
years.
know what?
He's
you know
been
what's
a
funny?
fraud
I keep
all
telling
these
him to
years.
do it. You know why he doesn't want to do it?
Why?
Because he doesn't want to find out how much French he has.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he wants to keep it Haitian. He's gonna end up. I'm gonna laugh so hard when it comes back 63% French, dude. I am gonna.
It's not.
And I'm just gonna call you Pierre or or Pepe or something from that point on, dude.
Whatever, man.
You can get it if you did though. You could get into Montreal under the Canadian side, the festival. You know how they have to let a certain amount of French Canadians.
Yes.
in?
So
You get a loophole.
Oh, and by the way, before we go in, just want to let you know, he's never gotten up and walked away before.
In the middle of a show?
First time.
Yeah. Well,
That's
before
respect.
when we
Could
were
you
doing it
please-
live, remember
It's
that
a
one
respect I
time
get.
I had to.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, you have never done this. Even when we weren't live, he didn't do it.
Remember I did it that one time. Remember I was about to I said, "Hey, we got to stop." Remember when we were in when we were in the small room up there? I was like, "Yo, I'd use the bathroom back." I've been drinking so much water, man. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, it was again. Yeah. Oh, and this is, if you guys don't know, if we have not talked about this, Ruben has he's that person that just goes, bathroom. Like there's no,
That's me. I'm that.
no bladder control whatsoever. It's just like boom, he's gone. He'll literally jump out of a car, a moving vehicle, if he has to go to the bathroom. It's the craziest.
Chris, first he said, "I've never done that before." Now all of a sudden I don't have bladder control. I mean, come on,
No,
man.
I forgot about that one. I did forget that you had done it.
I did it
before.
once, yeah.
And we had a guest on that one. We had a guest. You didn't leave me by myself. Did you leave me by myself? No, we had a guest on that
I think we
one.
paused it or something.
Maybe it's because mentally you're like, they can handle it, you know?
Well, Johnny can talk, as we all know. So I knew there wouldn't be no problem.
I was really interested in, and it is interesting to the way they started the room.
Oh, dude, it
was so.
And I knew
you
you'd
said,
get a kick out of it.
West,
Yeah, that's.
and-
I wouldn't have left you if I didn't know you. You know what I mean? Like you'd be able to handle.
And
it.
Ruben's
That
been
would've
there.
Wouldn't
He's
that
been
have
to
been
those.
hilarious if you? All of a sudden you're just like, damn, it's quiet in there. We were just like this.
waiting.
Waiting.
Anyway,
Dude, we're waiting for you to come back.
But he also reminds, I think it's either somebody I knew back home. I cannot figure it out. It'll
get
hit
that
me
a
later,
lot.
man. It'll hit me later. But there's just something. What's interesting is you had talked about him before. You in your act.
Yes.
When he would talk Mandarin.
Yeah.
And you're like this whitest dude.
Yes.
He's fluent. You couldn't even if you
From
close
Sacramento.
your eyes. Right.
Yeah.
And then today, I guess you never really said his name together. I don't know if you had even said my friend Turner or whatever.
Yeah, I just said my
always
friend
said
Turner.
right.
Yeah.
So today when he's like, when you texted, you were like, "Hey, my Turner's microphone," and I was like, "Oh, well, that can't be the white dude in China because Turner Sparks sounds black to me."
wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
Because I know Turners.
What's her
They're
name?
Turners.
Jordan Sparks.
And then there's Jordan Sparks.
And her dad was
And
the
there's
defensive
there's
back for the.
You just keep proving that you have no black
know how.
friends
Turner.
whatsoever.
I know. What about the comedian Willis Turner?
Yeah.
Turner's my first name.
Turner's
No,
his first
I know,
name.
but Turner.
There's so many Turners.
Aren't there other Turner? There are Turners
Justin Turner that
Even a
plays for the
last name could
Dodgers.
be
I
first or
mean,
last.
I really. It sounded like honestly. I was like, oh, maybe this is one of the other
Turner's
guys.
right next to Kyle or
It
Chad.
is?
Yeah.
It's like it's a pre-millennial or like early stage millennial white guy name.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't know
is.
that.
First
I don't
name.
know if I knew any. I don't know if I've ever even met Turners.
There's not a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First name
Well,
Turners.
you probably didn't have a lot of white friends.
You tell me.
No, there's not a
you
lot.
You tell me I have too many all the
not
time.
a
So
lot
make
of
up your
white
mind,
Turners.
dude.
But
Most
you're-
of them
but
are
you-
related to me.
Yeah.
They're like my nephew or my
But
uncle.
kind of switching gears a little bit, kind of tell everybody how you ended up in China in the first place.
Well, I ended up there. I just went to college in Miami, and after college, I wanted to go. So I just went. I just went there to teach English. I was going to teach English for a year. It was like the real thing to do 15 years ago if you hadn't you wanted to avoid life.
Yeah.
And your parents would be proud because they're like, oh, he's doing something, but really you're doing nothing. You're just going to like a dive bar on the other side of the world and drinking for a few years, But they can tell their friends, like, oh no, he's your son's a doctor, my son's in China. You don't even have to name the
what he's
job.
doing.
You just
he
say
works
where
at
he is.
McDonald's in China.
Yeah, you could be doing anything. I mean, I knew a lot of guys who were just total dirtbags, but it didn't matter. So it was fun. So I did that for a year, and then
Teaching English.
I taught English for a year,
right.
and then and over the course of that, got the idea to do Mr. Softy ice cream trucks. Mr. Softy's this like New York East Coast.
Yeah, you remember Mrs.
Yeah,
Softy?
of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Soft serve. It's like Dairy Queen on a truck. Soft serve cones, dip cones, banana splits.
Delicious,
all
by
that
the
stuff.
way.
Oh,
It's
those are the best.
Delicious.
The soft serves are the best.
Yeah, soft serve.
It's kind of
on
like
the truck.
Foster's
Yeah,
Freeze.
like Foster's
Yeah,
Freeze.
yeah,
No,
yeah, exactly.
I know what you mean.
So I got the idea to do that in China, and then I did that for 10 years.
You drove around in a soft serve truck?
I did for a little while, and then we had one truck, and then we ended up getting up to 10 trucks and 2 stores. So that was like my main business for the decade.
He ran the company.
Yeah.
Wow.
He ran the company.
Yeah.
He wasn't a driver. He ran the company.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't ever do any driving?
I couldn't. Every once in a while, I like jump on and serve,
Yeah. Oh, I
But I was
see.
mostly in the office, like expansion.
And did you guys?
all that stuff.
What was the name?
Mr. Softy.
Oh, just Mr.
the Chinese name was Ran Xin Qiancheng, which means Mr. Soft Heart, because there's like Softy's not a word,
But,
so we had to be like,
tell
how do
him
we
tell him
translate?
the history of China and ice cream trucks.
They never had them before.
Never had ice cream trucks in the whole country.
There had been
The kids didn't have those growing up.
Well, there had been like a couple. We found out later there had been a couple in Shanghai, like a decade before us, that also called themselves Mr. Softy, but were
Oh,
fakes.
really?
Yeah, but then that went away, and then years and years later. But besides Shanghai, nothing.
Well, but you skipped a step. You
sorry.
let everybody know how you. No, let everybody know how you. Because you just said they were a fake. They're a knockoff version of Mr. Softy. Tell them how you got to be involved with Mr. Softy in the first place.
Oh, so my roommate from college, University of Miami,
Some white shit.
I was
His,
wondering. I meant to ask that, but,
yeah.
but okay, here.
Go ahead.
the U.
Yeah, he went to the
his grandfather. Do you just want me to tell this?
Yeah, tell the
'Cause
story.
It's the whitest story
This is
ever.
the whitest story ever.
Okay.
His
Yeah.
grandfather started Mr. Softy in the 1950s.
And that was your.
Like freshman year, we lived next door to each other.
Okay.
And then we became friends. We'd lived together. We were roommates senior year. Still, the guy I'm staying with right now in LA.
Oh my God.
My best friend, one of
Okay.
my best friends in life. Yeah.
He helped you. He moved out to China as well. Or
No,
you-
I just moved.
But you.
But
you,
I connected with his family
on
and,
how to do what the.
and kind of like we got the rights from his family to develop the brand in China.
Dude. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see what you're saying.
How many times have been like, hey man, my daddy started Hennessy. You bullshit. I mean,
I like how you just totally set me up.
No, but it is like when he tells me these stories, I'm like, are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah.
But that's the type of thing, and we've talked about on different podcasts, especially when we talk about
man.
the black community and opportunities. Like people always want to criticize athletes for losing their money, but these kids come from nothing. They come from impoverished situations. It's not like they have an accountant next door to tell them how to
And
use
also
their
people
money.
to support
Yeah.
when they make money.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
Supporting like 20,
Right.
whatever, family members.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's always fascinating to me the life opportunities people have when you don't grow up in a poor environment.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're the person across the street might be a lawyer. Oh, I need a defense attorney. I need a tax attorney. I need this. It's all within the community. Like, but
Yeah.
a lot of times when you grow up, what does your dad do? He's a janitor. He does this. It's like really, blue collar type jobs. And white people, not all white people, obviously, but a lot of friends that I've had conversations with is always start. I remember meeting somebody at a party. Their fathers invented the sticky thing that you put on
Post-it notes?
the Post-it notes.
Really?
Multi-millionaire, like
Oh my God.
Post-it notes.
That's a pretty genius invention.
It's
Unbelievably genius.
It is.
And
People were taping stuff
Everybody
to
was
walls
putting tape.
forever.
Everybody
Yeah.
was putting tape on the.
They're
yeah.
wealthy. Like, hey, how'd you make your money? It's like,
Post-it note money.
my grandfather, invented Post-it notes. It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Just to be around that. That's why I think a lot of times when you do start to become successful as a person of color, that's one thing you look forward to is to be able to open up opportunities. And exposure to your, so you can create generational wealth.
And then you know
for
what's
your
funny
family.
too. Sometimes when as minorities, someone will recommend somebody within your own culture, like, oh, like you said, a lawyer. You need a, we'll call so and so's second cousin or our third cousin.
Yeah.
And you're like, Rogelio, I'm gonna go to the yellow pages.
See,
I'm gonna Google
You're racist
it.
against your own people, man.
But no, but they're because sometimes you just kind of go, yeah, I don't know if we'll be repped right. Proper, you know what I mean? It's kind of weird.
Yeah,
because sometimes within the culture there'll be. I know this through people and relatives from the, they'll be like, well, they ended up, let's just stick with the lawyer thing. It's just like, he bends too quickly. Like, you know what? They want you to do this, but yeah, just take it.
That's the lawyer.
Why do you have to give your lawyer? Why do you have to give your lawyer that accent?
Because this was a specific this was a specific lawyer that
not
spoke
being a lawyer.
that spoke Spanish.
Just take it.
But that's what I'm saying, because even their mentality is like, I'm not going to probably win this battle. So, he's just there to get a commission and then basically be like, just take the...
No, you want the guy who's like, we're going to take it.
Right. And that's why you go to...
The white man?
You go to Turner and Sons law firm and Goldberg and Brothers.
I was waiting for that. Yeah, I was like,
But I just think that mentality needs to change, man.
and associates.
By the way, if I would have, I told you, if I would have done that and if I'd gotten into law, I wanted to be a lawyer when I was growing up. I would have probably I would have done a little bit of both.
You'd actually been a good lawyer.
Oh yeah, nobody
you
would
love to argue.
Stop.
You love to argue.
I would have catered to both. You know what I mean? I would have. So my last name would have been Sanchez. From Sanchez to Sanchez.
Really?
It's a little combo of both. Dirty Sanchez.
You're so ridiculous, man.
The law offices of Dirty Sanchez. Anyway, I can tell he wants to be. All right, I'll stop.
No,
his wheels are turning. He wants to ask you something. Go ahead.
So you meet up with your friend's family. They go, hey, you can franchise over in China.
Yeah, so we're like, no, we tried to make it even more. We're like, hey, I was like, hey, I have this idea. I want to do Mr. Softy in China. So like, give me your money. Let's do it. And they're like, what? No. Yeah, because they're like, do you have a business background? I'm like, no. And they're like, I was like, I thought they would want to invest. I was an idiot, you know? And they're like, no, we don't want to invest in you. Like, if you want to be a franchisee like everyone else, you can buy a franchise from us.
So how'd you get your initial investment? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
We each got, it was Alex and Jeffrey was our Chinese. We got a Chinese partner.
Okay.
And then myself, and we each got like $20,000 together and then put it together and built a truck. And then used that truck. We ran that for a year. And off of that year of like numbers, like test case, we raised $1.5 million.
Oh, wow.
As like a Mr. Softy China investment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
you guys got loans?
We got loans. Yeah,
now, was it, what's the transferring or the whatever the proper word is for money wise? Was it more expensive to do it with the what's their currency?
The renminbi or the yuan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah. I have no idea.
They call it two different things.
But is it more money to start here in the States, or is it more in China?
I see what you're
or is
saying.
it equal? Is it equal amount of money?
It's kind of equal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the trucks were expensive because all like the ice cream machine was a U.S. machine that had to be imported, so you're paying import taxes.
Oh, that is so weird. Everything's made in China, and you have to import for the U.S.
The ice cream machine. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Because they don't make like this is a high end like $30,000 machine.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
I got it.
The trucks you could get in China. And then you outfit it, like you remodeled them into an ice cream truck.
Do you have any photos?
Yeah, I have tons.
Can we put up a photo?
Yeah, we'll have him send some photos that you can add in post.
Yeah, in post, because I got to see what these look. I mean, they probably look just like all other ice cream trucks. Are a little were they a little styled
differently because they didn't have like the style. I think it's a Ford they use in the United States, that kind of boxy, almost like Hot Wheels type truck.
Yep.
And so ours was Iveco, was a Italian company that had set up over there, and it was basically the same size truck but a different shape.
Like round,
like a little more sleek.
Okay.
And so but you could outfit the inside, like the square footage in the inside was the same. So we took the specs from the American truck and rebuilt the inside to make it look like the president came over from the U.S. and he was like, got inside. He's like, this is exactly like my trucks.
What president?
Mr. Softy.
Oh,
Not the president of the
I
United
thought you meant
States.
Obama was Bush or Obama was there.
This is very good ice cream. It's delicious, Turner. It's delicious.
Oh, look at that.
Good job, Turner.
Oh shit.
Ruben's doing impressions.
No, the Softy.
So, I think a great moment that I remember is when
At some point we got to get to how it ended. That
yeah
was the
yeah
fall
well,
of
let's.
Softy.
I was going to set up your book for that, but
Yeah.
I remember you took me to this Italian restaurant in Sujo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were talking about the ice cream truck, and he was like, "You want some ice cream?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to try it." And he picks up the phone and he calls the ice cream truck, and it pulls up in front of the place. Like, that's some real ball shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
That's
hey man,
great.
come pull up at this Italian restaurant. And then we went, had some ice cream, and it was great. Tasted just like, you know,
And
like
especially
you'd have
if
here.
you're an American in China going, you want some ice cream? All right, hold on.
Yeah.
And then,
And then the truck pulls
and
up.
the truck pulls up.
Yeah,
I
it was-
mean, come
it was-
on.
It was great. And then go have Italian food
And then have Italian.
Yeah,
food.
exactly.
in China.
Made by Chinese
But let
people?
me tell you,
Or they
I
have
think
Italian.
if it was a nice one, it was
Italian.
these
it
Italian.
was the Italians,
Italians.
yeah, and there was a bunch of Italians. Like,
Sicilians,
yeah,
if you know what I'm talking about.
yeah, great pizza and
I
everything.
escaped.
But
Thank God.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
They're connected people.
Okay.
I had
okay.
really good meals throughout China, except when you took me to that Mexican restaurant.
That was the worst.
That
Andy
was
wanted
the
to go.
worst.
I didn't want to go. Andy's
was the
Australian. He's like, yeah,
worst
mate.
meal.
We're going to go get some.
He's Australian. He
yeah,
had no
mate.
idea.
Oh,
mate.
that's right.
He had no
Let's go
idea
get a feed,
what
mate.
real Mexican food tastes like. And dude, I remember going to this Mexican restaurant and biting into that food, going, I didn't even finish the meal. I
Now,
took a bite. And was
so
like,
who was cooking it?
That was a Chinese, like total
yeah,
Chinese
it was,
stuff.
Dude, it was
Yeah.
it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. Like
shout
in
out.
America, we know like the Mexicans, like at Panda Express, they're the ones who cook all the food and make all of it.
Yeah.
but they
Speaking
didn't
of
do
horrible.
Yeah, they didn't do.
Panda
So
Express.
They didn't
this
do it.
guy,
They didn't do it justice.
Which area of Australia was he from?
Melbourne.
Oh, Melbourne. Okay, I was
Yeah.
going to say.
And
all
he's a
right.
good guy, man.
Because I thought maybe, because if he was from Sydney, then he grew up with Mad Mex Mexican food in
What's
Sydney.
Oh,
Those people from, but they were Mexican from Santa Ana, and then they moved to Australia. They opened up a Mexican restaurant called Mad Mex because of
I think I remember.
Mad Max and
Yeah.
George Miller and all them, right? So I was thinking, well, maybe because even when we went there, it was like,
Yeah,
it was okay, but even though they were from California, like it just was okay. And I'm thinking, well, he grew
This
up
was
with
not
that.
okay.
this
This
Mexican
guy was like on my
food-
soccer team. It's just a Chinese guy who was like, this will be a good, like, fill
Did
the-
you?
It
And
was
were they making
awful.
what? Tacos, burritos,
tacos,
Yeah.
burritos,
Enchiladas.
refried beans, enchiladas, rice. The rice was garbage. Like how do Chinese people fuck up rice?
rice.
Mexican rice.
Well, it's Mexican
Yeah.
rice.
Yeah, man. It was, but it was
That's
just such a great
hilarious.
experience going over there. But Turner, you wrote a book, right?
Yeah, so I've written a couple drafts of it. I have a packet out right
Oh, okay.
now. I have an agent. We're trying to get a publisher.
And tell them what the book is about.
It's about my business life in China. So it's like the way Mr. Softy. I just gave you the first half of the story, and it was going like really, really well. Going
Yeah,
up, up,
Turner
up,
was
up, up.
balling.
Oh,
And
nice.
then the new president came in 2013, who now he's like screwing with the NBA and everything. And then in 2000, basically what happened was local government officials, we were doing so well, local government officials got their relatives to come work for us. Like we needed to hire people, they would apply, we hired them. I don't know. And then copy everything we did and then start stealing from us in like 9 different ways. Once we fired them from stealing, they opened their own ice cream trucks and then park right next to ours where we had like these exclusive permits we'd put together. And then eventually the government pulled our permits away, so we became illegal so they could do our business.
They gangstered him.
Happens everywhere, doesn't
Gangsters.
it?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
They gangstered him.
And-
Basically took their business away.
Well, this
Took
sounds a lot like Ray Kroc from McDonald's.
Oh,
Yeah,
Ray Kroc is
right?
shit.
It's very Ray Kroc is shit. Yeah, he won't eat there anymore.
I
after
haven't
the
been
movie
back.
came
Yeah,
out.
after the movie
Oh.
came back, I haven't been.
That's
to
such a
McDonald's
great
since.
movie because in the first half you like him.
Yeah,
You know?
it's one of those movies where
Yeah.
I remember in the interviews they were going, "This is a unique movie that you start off pulling for the guy,
Yeah.
and then you
despise
him by
Which
the
is
end."
closer to real life, right?
Yes.
People go in and out
Yes.
of good and bad and all that
exactly.
stuff.
But that's
So-
insane that all that happened?
That's the Mr. Softy story. Then halfway through that,
Something.
that
It
crazy?
sounds funny.
halfway through that, we started the open mics, and then that turned into the tour, which turned into a club, and that was doing okay. And eventually I moved back. Andy kept it going. I moved back in 2016 to New York.
Okay.
So I've been in New York since 2016.
okay.
Yeah. And Andy kept it going, and then called me one day in like 2018 and was like, hey, Live Nation wants to buy our comedy club. Do you want to sell it? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So we sold that.
Oh, so that's who's
So that
who's
like
doing
went well,
what?
and then they hired Andy. They bought it and hired Andy to be the head of their comedy division for Asia. But in the process, bought our club, and then 9 months after they bought it from us, the government shut down the club. So that got shut down late last year. Now it's reopening in Hong Kong, but it's like,
Yeah.
we kind of got
That's
out
gonna be
at the
dope
right
when it
time.
opens up in Hong Kong.
It is. I've been looking at all the renovations. It's really sick.
Yeah.
It's right in Central, right in the. And
Oh,
Jamie's
perfect.
cool with it. Jamie's like kind of close, the Takeout Comedy Club, so he might run a night there. There were Andy and him were working together.
Oh,
good.
You
So it'll be a
mentioned
good
Takeout
Takeout
Comedy
Comedy
Club.
Club. Yeah,
I thought
that's
that
good.
was a great name.
Yeah, that's a comedy club that I used to work in Hong Kong, and which kind of spawned all the other rooms around Asia. You know?
Takeout definitely did.
Yeah, because when he opened up in Hong Kong, then they started opening up rooms in Shanghai and Thailand and
Yeah,
pretty
because he
much-
would do this festival every year. There was like all around Asia, basically starting like 2007, 2008. What would happen once the comedy podcast started? All these people started hearing about like I'm trying to think who was early. It was like Mark Maron. I remember it was like Adam Carolla even would have comedians on as guests, and you would start to hear about like the craft of comedy. And around like Philippines, Thailand, up in China with us, in Japan, in Korea, everywhere, all these little scenes started popping up. And I mean little, like 8, 10 people.
Yeah.
Once a year, Jamie had the only real club in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And once a year, he had this festival that you headlined 2012. And we all applied to be in this competition, and then if you got in, it was like a big deal. And then if you did well in it, it was even bigger of a deal. But we would all meet each other at these competitions. The 100 of us total who were scattered around Asia. Wow. And then we would all kind of learn and start booking each other to like, oh, you come out and do my club and I'll go and do your club next month.
Got it.
And so that was the genesis of all of it. And now it's like this big scene.
Wow.
You can tour Asia.
It's kind of sad that China shut it down, but
yeah,
it's still great in other places. But Hong Kong is a city that one of my favorite cities in the world. There's this great energy, and I'm happy that they're.
I mean, the
opening up
opportunity
there.
for Andy in Hong Kong's giant.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you
man.
ever tell him about when you were thinking about shooting your special in Shanghai?
He's the one who's going to help me produce it.
Yeah, we were
Oh,
working
so
on
you
it
knew the
together.
name.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you,
yeah.
you were wearing Black Guy in Shanghai.
Man,
Yeah.
that would have been great.
We were working
just
on it
love
together.
We were
name
working,
so
but it was
much.
just too much red tape to try to get it done. Which reminds me now that you said that they shut the comedy club down. What is Joe Wong doing over there now, I wonder?
Joe Wong is in Beijing.
I know.
And they can still, he's doing mostly Chinese language stuff.
Yeah.
He also, he has his own TV show. So for the last like 3 or 4 years.
So Joe Wong, me and you talked about him before. He had done Letterman a bunch of time, the Asian guy on Letterman.
Okay.
Good joke writer.
He did White House Correspondents' Dinner
Yeah,
one year.
yeah.
wow.
And he just never really took off
He's
in the
Chinese
States.
from China.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's Chinese, but his whole family, he did a guest set on my show in Beijing. His whole family, his kids, born and raised in New York City. He's doing well. I guess he told me he was doing corporates and stuff like that, but never was like, touring, doing clubs and
In the US.
in the US and headlining, being able to make good money. Then he had an opportunity to go to China. He speaks the language, he speaks Mandarin, and now he's huge over there.
He like because he was a professional comedian when we were all like 3 years in, so he saw what we were doing and was like, I'll just go back and be the best guy there.
And he
Plus,
speaks the
it's
language.
his country. He grew up there. He was there for 20 years.
yeah,
He came to
yeah.
us for college.
Yeah.
Stayed. But he moved back to Beijing and immediately got like a primetime TV show, kind of like one of those
So
like.
he must be a millionaire now.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he does
Good for him,
theaters
man.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember we talked about it. He kind of just showed up. And I go, how are your kids adjusting? He's like, they hate it. They're American. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, you did tell me about
Yeah,
that, dude.
yeah,
Yes.
And he's a real like.
This kid's from New
Yeah,
York.
could you imagine? Like, dude, we got to live in Beijing.
Yeah.
That's got to be tough for a kid growing up. And then, but your dad is like, yo, we can live, you know, we'll be able to have houses anywhere we want if we keep doing this.
And they can always go, and they'll be able to afford to go back and forth to New York when they want to go back. I mean, that's right. You told me about
crazy,
that,
dude.
man. That is insane.
And one thing that's interesting about comedy in general, and we saw this with the King of Comedy, and we saw this with Russell Peters. It's amazing that there's so many comedians that can make huge amounts of money that the average person has no idea they even exist.
Totally.
We've
It's
had
just crazy.
You guys talked about that?
We've talked about that. Like,
you know what I mean? Somebody making millions of dollars, and you'll be having a conversation with somebody. They go, "Who's that?
Who?
Never
Even
heard of
somebody
him."
making like 300 grand. Like
Yeah,
there's people
500 grand,
who can
yeah.
put together like, well, my podcast. There's people who make 50 grand a month on their podcast. No one's ever heard of them, and then they go do a live podcast, and then you piece it all together, and it's like this guy's at least making 250, 300 grand
Easy.
and they're not even getting spots in town.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
like no one's booking them.
Exactly, man.
And I guess it's just a testament to the sign of the times. Like you're not dependent on the powers that be for your success, which is great. Like there's no real gatekeeper anymore. And that's why it's hard for a lot of us who've been doing it a long time, because we've grown up in the era of gatekeepers, you know, and quality control. Now it really doesn't matter if the content is good or not. It's just really about content and popularity.
I think it's almost niche.
Yeah.
Like if you can find your whatever 20,000 fans or something, and they're super into what you do, then you don't need everybody else.
Exactly. You don't. You know, somebody like Russell Peters proved that.
Well, yeah.
Years ago.
he was one of the him and Dane.
Yeah.
Dane.
Well, I mean, but Dane being white male in America, you know what I mean? He has access to, but you know, I think
but his thing. What I mean is, he found it on, you know, with MySpace.
Yeah.
His niche was like high school kids.
Yeah.
Right?
In college. Yeah. He was
high school and college
yeah,
kids, but went to a huge demo. You know what I mean? Where if you really want to think about it, George Lopez, when he started doing, you know, more Mexican material, when you went to go see him at a club, it was 99% Mexicans in the room. Yeah. And that has carried him throughout his career. Now he has, of course, fans of all races, but still, when you go to a George Lopez show, it's going to be predominantly Latino. And I think that's something dope about that. I mean, you think of the Kings of Comedy. You know, they were selling out arenas. No one had any idea. Kevin Hart is a little different because he's really across the board.
He went broad, right?
Yeah, you know, he's really broad where... Yeah, there's a lot of black people at his shows, but there's a lot of white people. There's a lot of Mexicans. I mean, even Joe Coy, somebody who's doing now. But if you go to his show, it's going to be a lot of Asians, Filipinos at his shows. Right. So in those areas that fit that demo, you're going to do well. Sebastian with the Italian Americans. You know, I was having a conversation about Sebastian the other day with one of my. I had no idea who he was.
I saw him at a party in New York maybe a year ago. No one knew who he was, and he was 2 months away from he sold out Madison Square Garden 4 times.
Yes,
that was like a couple months later, and he was standing at a party, standing at the bar, like looking around, nobody talking to him. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit.
He should probably enjoy that because I
don't think it's going to last.
He's coming, you know, he's going to come out in The Irishman. He's got a small role in The Irishman. And I'm sure some other stuff's going to come. And then we know Sebastian. Yeah. He's going to hate the other side of it with people coming up all the time. I mean, you know, he's very persnickety.
Great word.
But so that's one thing that's cool about, like you said, finding your niche and what that international market does. Like me and Johnny have talked about this. When you're across the board, meaning you kind of relate to everyone, that is a very good thing, but sometimes it's hard to monetize. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times clubs want black comics to draw black people.
And they want to advertise. Yeah, it's easier for them to just go, hey, we've got this. You know,
it's like, hey, lowest common denominator. Hey, audience.
Yes.
Hey, dumb audience. Yeah. Here's that.
Exactly.
It fills that.
And you look at it like probably their thinking is, we got white guys to draw white people. We need to draw in this other demo that might not necessarily come to this club only because you were here. And that's why comics like Cheryl Underwood and Earthquake and Arnez J, comics you probably have no idea who I'm talking about.
I know.
They've been touring and making
just like we
tons of money.
About. Yes.
And you know they draw a predominantly specific type of audience, which is great. But I know at some point there is going to be value in being able to relate to different type of audiences. And like we were saying, one thing that's great about Ruby Tuesdays is I do love the diversity in the audience. Like I wouldn't want to perform for just white people, you know, as a black man. It's important to have.
It's a totally mixed show.
Yeah, and you want it to be mixed. I want it to be mixed because I think, you know, in this country we have, you know, created this stigma within different cultures that we're all one way. Like we're all what's the word? Like we're all
homogeneous, like whatever.
Homogenized or monolithic community. You know what I mean? So, and we're not. Like we're all different. Not every black person grew up in the ghetto and grew up poor, and not. You know what I mean? So there's diversity with like there's no two human beings that are the same. So you can't expect everybody in the race to be the same. So I think, you know, at some point to be able to be seen in by different people is a benefit because now you can reverse certain stereotypes. You can create different narratives based on your real experiences, real life, not on the stereotype that we've been fed over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, especially when you watch stand-up, you might look at somebody, everyone has a different story.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily relate to what they look like.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's dope. Yeah. And that's a problem, like a lot of times is comedy has become really redundant. Like you can go to certain rooms and everybody has the same premises.
Yeah.
They talk about the same subject matter.
Because it's easy.
Because it's easy. You know, black people do this, white people do this, black people do which is fine. Our Latinos do this, but and all that is cool. But at some point, again, going back to Ruby Tuesdays, I just thought it would be dope to have a show where everybody's different.
Yeah.
Like no comic is the same. You get a variety and you get an audience that's mixed. So there's no excuses to not do well. Either you're funny or you're not. You know what I mean? And you can't say, oh, man, they didn't like me because they were all black. They didn't like me because they're all white. Like, no, dude, everybody's in the room and everybody has the ability to laugh at different things. Like, you can like Jerry Seinfeld and Cedric the Entertainer. Yeah. Like, it's very possible for a human being to do that.
Like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I like both of them. But I actually love to listen to both of those guys.
I like your mentality. You're like, if you bombed in my room, you just bombed, dude.
Yeah. I kind of feel
you can't
like
blame
that.
it on anybody.
I do kind of feel like that because I just think the clubs have been set up to like they think people are stupid, you know, that they don't have the ability to like different things outside of what people might perceive them to like, what the stereotype might be.
I feel like here they do nights, right? Like it's night by night.
Yeah, you mean like they've got a Latino night and
then Chocolate Sunday,
and then
in New York it's not even nights; it's just the club. Like there's like I guess you would call it mainstream club, which means like mostly white people, right?
Yeah.
And then there's like the uptown clubs, right? Which is mostly black people.
Yeah.
And actually those are the options. I don't think there's like a mostly Asian club.
Yeah, and then I just think it depends on Latino the comic club. And the desire to want to, you know, broaden, you know, their fan base. And, you know, somebody like Bernie Mac, there's a clip going around on the internet that's old when he was on Oprah where he goes, I just never wanted to be, you know, Bernie goes, I just never wanted to be considered a black comic. I make everybody laugh. Yeah. You know, and I think ultimately, you know, comedy has shown that if we allow it, you know what I mean? Bernie made everybody laugh. And Bernie, you know, to our community, to the black community, was that guy.
Yeah, because
he was very unapologetically black.
Yeah.
But he related to everybody because we're human, man.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, we're human. So
all
you
his
can
family stuff.
Yeah, his family stuff is like you can relate to it, or he painted the picture so great. I mean, he was just
because he was. I know we brought this up before. He did the Chitlin circuit early, right in the South.
Well, I know he had a room in Chicago. I don't know a lot of his road history prior. Okay. I just know he was like the king of Chicago coming up. You know, he hosted like a variety type show, and they used to put comics up, and he became that guy in Chicago. But at that time, I remember Sinbad talking about this. There weren't. I mean, of course, they had their Chitlin circus, but there weren't black nights and themed nights back then.
Right.
There weren't. You just did comedy.
Right.
You know,
right.
you just did shows. And when Michael Williams started the Comedy Act Theater in the 90s with I don't know when he started. I think it was going on even when I was in high school. But when he started the Comedy Act Theater, that was from what I understand. I could be wrong, but the first owned and operated black comedy club that catered to just black. That catered to black people. There's a room called I think All Jokes Aside. That was another room in Chicago, but I think it was after Michael Williams opened up. Somebody
Okay.
can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But these black rooms, when I started, were sprouting up. Like Michael Williams had the Comedy Act Theater that was off of Crenshaw on 43rd. Then he opened up the Comedy Act Theater in Atlanta. And then I know there was All Jokes Aside that was in Chicago, which was so I'm sure, you know, right before Def Comedy Jam or when Def Comedy Jam exploded, you started seeing all these black nights
And
kind of
is that
pop
where
up.
you would gravitate to early?
Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
the first probably 5-6 years I did comedy, I only did black rooms.
And what
I
about, like,
never performed in front of quote unquote
Okay,
mainstream
yeah, yeah.
audiences.
He
What
wouldn't
about-
go. He wouldn't go north
I wouldn't
of
go
Wilshire.
north of Wilshire.
I don't even get the reference, but I like
Oh,
it.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't
But in
live
LA,
there.
Wilshire is like the
Wilshire.
dividing point. You know what I mean? North of Wilshire is more mainstream, and south of Wilshire is more hood.
Got it.
But I grew up in that environment. I was working those clubs. I was comfortable with those clubs, and it wasn't until
In the first few years, you're just trying to do well.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't care who's watching. Just like
what it
whatever's
makes-
easiest for me to like be comfortable.
And you know,
Right.
I started in the San Fernando Valley doing like bars for open mic nights, and then I started coming to the Comedy Store doing the Belly Room, and then all of a sudden they started having these Latino nights, which were in hindsight were great because I was getting stage time. But I remember just kind of going, man, I'm like the odd guy out here. Like a lot of them were from LA, you know, the majority of them were more East LA.
Yeah.
So their references and
culturally,
they just had an inside thing with the Latino audience. I still did well, but I was always sort of the guy, the different one, which really worked because it was like, well, they're gonna get something a little different, you know.
yeah,
than
it's the same joke over
right.
and over.
But then I got picked up at the store pretty early,
that's great.
and that was it. And that's why I think we've always had that crossover.
Yeah.
We got into these big clubs when we were early on in our careers, and so all we got used to was just mixed crowds.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
So
and one thing with Johnny when we became friends is we kind of noticed similarities in just the ability to work different types of rooms, different type of crowds, and not everybody's capable of doing that.
Yeah.
You know, and remaining who you are and remaining the same. Now, I grew up probably in a more non-diverse urban situation
right.
than you did.
Yep.
But my family was Haitian in that environment, which made me different, even though I was, you know, like I always
look similar, but you were
yeah.
different
I always say that, you know, outside the house was the hood, inside the house was Haiti. So I learned everything about Black American culture from my friends and their families, and you know, the fact that my parents were always gone, I was always with my friends, and
Yeah.
you know, eating at their houses sometimes, and you know, oh, what's this? My mom don't make, you know, mac and cheese or or
You
you know,
you said
collard
that joke
greens
about
or
it.
yeah, you know what I mean. So all these things I kind of experienced. So when I started doing comedy, when the Haitian stuff wasn't working early on because no one had an idea of what Haiti was, it was very natural for me to talk about the African American experience because
Yeah.
that was my experience. You know, got pulled over by the police. You know,
why didn't you
roughed
do?
up.
Why didn't you just do the accent when you got pulled over? Oh, why you pulled me over? Oh,
Probably work.
You know.
but
so
real-
basically, you're growing up. You're technically a hoodie.
Why, what?
The hood and Haiti. I'm out of here, guys.
Oh my God! So before we
Wait, what
go,
happened? Charcoal Nissan car.
Oh, that could be me.
is that you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, were we gonna wrap it? Oh, do you want keys?
Can I give you the keys?
Thank you.
Live podcasting, folks.
Yeah, it's fine.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, man.
It's a rental. Whatever you want.
So before we take off, before we get out of here, I wanted to kind of touch on, because of your experiences in China and living there and speaking the language and understanding Chinese politics, which you've dealt with firsthand of them taking away your business.
Yeah.
What's going on really? Because me and you talked briefly about this last night when you came to the show. What's going on with the NBA? And really, because we're getting, of course, the American perspective
Yeah.
of what's happening over there. For you guys who don't know, Daryl Morey, the GM of the Houston Rockets, sent out a tweet in support of the people of Hong Kong.
Yeah, it said fight for. It was like a meet, just like a poster.
Saw this morning,
and
yeah.
it said fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong. He sent it out on Friday morning. He took it down an hour later, and just that they caught it and retweeted it. Which is, first of all, Chinese people don't have Twitter, so how did they even get it? But they, it's illegal to go on Twitter in China.
Right.
Anyway, because of that, they canceled every single Chinese sponsor of the NBA, which there's a lot. Every single one.
We're talking about
out.
billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars. Every single one canceled their relationship with the NBA. They canceled the Tencent is a media company that puts all the games online, like Amazon or something. They have the broadcast rights to the online for the NBA and all the stats and like highlights. And then also CCTV has the television rights. Both of those companies decided to cancel all preseason games of NBA.
Because the Lakers are over there right now, I think.
The Lakers are supposed to play tonight.
Yeah, and I think
maybe will happen, maybe not.
Because I know they canceled. There was an NBA event that the Lakers and the Nets were supposed to do.
Charity events got canceled. They were like giving clothes to orphans, and the Chinese government's like, no, you're not. I'm like, but they're Chinese orphans.
Kind of give everybody an
so
insight.
That's that. It's based off of what's going on in Hong Kong. You want me to talk about that?
Yes,
part?
absolutely.
Okay, so what's going on in Hong Kong is, let's see, there was a guy who got a Hong Kong. So Hong Kong and China are technically it's part of China, but as of
politically they were.
But politically, they have a one country, two systems rule, which means that Hong Kong has its own laws. It has free elections. It has the right to vote. It has freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. Like you can get together.
Okay.
It's much closer to the United States than it would be to China. Right. And China's allowed that to exist because so much money comes in because it's like a hub of international business and the shipping and all that stuff. So they've decided let that exist, but we still control it, but not real. We let them do what they want. But then like a year ago, Chinese secret police were showing up to bookstores in Hong Kong who were owned by local Hong Kong people who were selling books that might be against China, somehow negative for China, showing up in the middle of the night, essentially kidnapping them and taking them back to China, putting them on trial in the mainland, and then convicting them of whatever law it might be, the speech law in mainland.
Against
And they were doing this, and it happened enough to where Hong Kong people started to bring it up, like this, you can't do this anymore. And so they said, okay, instead of not doing it anymore, we're just going to make a law that says we can do it. So they said we're allowed to arrest people in Hong Kong for crimes committed that are illegal in the mainland.
Correct.
Yeah, and then take them back. And so that set off protests for the last 4 or 5 months that have been going on.
A lot, right.
Yeah. And what makes it complicated, so this seems like a very simple open and shut, like, Hong Kong's right, China's wrong, right? But then when he sent out that tweet on Friday, first of all, the Rockets are China's favorite basketball team.
Because of Yao Ming.
And they're like a home team to all of China. Like it's every Chinese person you met, their favorite team is the Rockets. They might also like Kobe, but they love the Rockets. It's like being a Lakers fan in LA, right? And because of Yao Ming and then Jeremy Lin, and then Rockets changed their uniforms to make them and the colors to make them more Chinese. Look like the Chinese.
Wow.
So it's very on purpose.
Yeah.
They've been cultivating this relationship, and the NBA's been there since '85 and making a ton of money, right? So let's see. So then China like flipped out when Daryl Morey made this tweet. And the Chinese people are in favor of canceling. It's like cancel culture, but to a sport, They're in favor of all this cancellation. And the reason why is because they have a censored media. So they're not getting the information that we're getting about Hong Kong.
Exactly.
What they're getting is that Hong Kong is uprising and wants to separate and become their own country.
But not given any information why.
Yeah. And so it'd be like if we just found out that Florida wants to be its own. Take a better example.
We don't care if Florida leaves.
Oregon wants to be its own.
Texas.
Texas wants to be its own.
They were always
country.
saying they wanted. Yeah,
California said that, right?
California too,
so say Texas wants to be its own country, and it's because they hate you. That's what they're being told. Hong Kong thinks they're better than us, and so they want to leave, and they think we're all trash, and so they think California's a good example because it's like looking down. They think they're looking down on them, and they think, and so it's kind of like, well, F you.
Yeah.
And then when you're the GM of your favorite basketball team is supporting that, you're like, what the F?
Yeah.
You know? Like, what the hell? Why
like
is
they
this
hate
happening?
us too. Yeah.
Yeah, hates us too. So of course, get rid of them. We don't need the Rockets either.
So it's just the limited information that the people of China are getting, which gets them to support what the government is doing. But I remember a story you told me that blew me away when we went to Beijing, when we went to Tiananmen Square, when there's people in China that have no idea of the massacre.
Almost everyone has no idea of the massacre.
Please evaluate that.
So
elaborate, I should say.
It was on the news that day in China in 1989. Right. First of all, Tiananmen Square is it's like Central Park or something, right?
It's huge.
And
took a lot of pictures
when
there.
we say Tiananmen Square, we're referencing a massacre that happened in 1989. When they say it, they're just referencing, it'd be like if a Chinese person's like Central Park, you're like, yeah, it's a place.
Yeah.
What about it? You know?
Right.
So in 1989, this happened. But the minute everything kind of ramped up and looked like it was getting dangerous, all Chinese media just stopped broadcasting it that day. And then the next day it was just like, it's sunny today, 85 degrees. Everybody go outside.
Wow.
They just moved on. And so
people it wasn't on TV.
It's not in any history books. It wasn't on TV.
No newspapers.
Only people would know about it. People who are like about probably 50 right now were college students during that time. And if you were a Chinese college student during that time, it was a big uprising. You might have known people who were actually there. Or there were similar things happening in your town or your city. So those people all know, but they kind of know not to tell other people.
Wow.
And if you're like, I'm 37 now, but even at 37, you wouldn't know. Like if you were 10 years younger, you wouldn't know about it. And so anyone who's, I would say 45 or under just was never told. They don't know what happened. They don't know it exists. So they have
but the whole world knows. How crazy is that?
The whole world knows.
And a big way that they can control is because they've this unique thing where they speak a language that no one else speaks, and their people don't speak English for the most part, right? So if it's not in your instinct to go start Googling in a language you don't speak. So even when the internet was a little more free, like 10 years ago, now it's all like completely censored. But 10 years ago, you could get Facebook and all that stuff. But if you're a Chinese person who doesn't speak English, you're not just going to be like, did something happen at Tiananmen Square in a different language?
Yeah.
You might Google it in your own language and nothing comes up.
Yeah.
But you're not going to Google it in a different language.
That's just crazy how the people can be controlled by information.
And that many.
We're
not talking about,
a billion and a half
Chile
people.
or, you know what I mean?
Didn't you tell me was it you that told me somebody hired you to teach their kids the real history?
So my first year there, these three parents, like wealthy Chinese sets of parents, had kids who were all seniors in high school and were about to go to college in the United States. And these parents knew all that stuff and didn't want their kids to be shocked or disbelieving of the new American people they were going to meet. So they specifically hired me, like privately, to spend 6 months with their students going through everything that the schools didn't teach them about China so that they would know it was real when they got here. Pretty smart parents.
Wow. How were the kids reacting?
They were like, what?
Isn't that crazy?
Kidding?
Isn't that
like,
crazy, dude?
Serious? But they knew they were in the class for that reason. But they didn't know. It's like you're gonna learn stuff that you've never heard of that happened under your nose, and you would still be like, all right, cool, teach me.
Yeah.
But then when you actually hear it, you're like, no way.
That's like us knowing like Kennedy. We didn't know that Kennedy got assassinated.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like Kennedy got shot. Like,
wait,
what are you talking about?
Man?
Yeah, he died of,
He had a heart failure.
It would be like thinking that Epstein died by suicide.
Yeah. I mean, I just,
the rest of the world's like, are you idiots?
And Johnny knows.
You got murdered.
And Johnny knows, like, for me, the best gift that I've been given is the ability to travel and learn these things. And that's why on stage I go, traveling is the best education you can get, because we just assume so much, and we're all in our own little worlds. And even in America, even though it's not censored like it is in China, there's certain things that we know that the media wants us to know. And they try to dictate to us how we should.
In the U.S.
Yeah, in
Definitely.
the U.S.
Yeah.
How we should feel about things.
right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not as censored as it is in China.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
It's
at
not
least in
censored,
America,
but they can decide what they put on TV and what they don't put on TV.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, how they create the images of black people and Latinos on TV. All those are images that are controlled. Somebody's making those decisions to
Yeah.
run the gunfight that happened here and run this and run that. And there's a lot of things happening in our country that people have no idea
Well,
that's
so
happening.
that's why this story is so interesting, because if you go on ESPN right now, there's almost no coverage of this, of what Daryl Morey with Hong Kong. And the reason why is because ESPN has a giant contract with China to broadcast these games.
Wow.
And there was on Deadspin last night, the memo came out that had been sent around to every ESPN employee saying, "Don't talk about this." If you so they're just
Wow.
So it's what's crazy about this story is that China's now controlling speech in the United States,
crazy.
and we're letting it.
yeah,
And
because of money.
Because of money.
Because of money. And the NBA is the first one. They had a press conference, I think, yesterday. Not
Adam Silver?
Adam Silver said he pushed back, and he's like, we're not going to control. First, they apologized on Friday.
I remember that.
And everyone flipped out. And then on Monday, he said, you know what, I've rethought about it. We're not going to apologize for Daryl Morey. We're not going to control what our players or anyone in our league says. If China has a problem with that, they have a problem with that. And they do have a problem with that. There's a really good chance now NBA's gone from China, just starting yesterday. Like, they never show another game. But it's a crazy time in history right now, because no company has ever stood up to China, and the NBA is the first ones to do it. And this is like make or break. If they don't stand up, then if they do stand up, I could see other like Apple jumping in and other people jumping in,
Right.
and being like, you know what, we're all sick of it.
Yeah.
But if they don't, we're there.
The thing that I found interesting is how upset they said Yao Ming was. Like, he was furious about.
I read that too, but I don't know on what side.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they made it seem like against the U.S. and against the Rockets that he was pissed that they did that.
I think that's true.
And but it's kind of sad to me, because one of my first memories of going to Shanghai was that huge mural of Kobe Bryant on the side of a building. Like, you just walk, and then like I'm talking about, man, just this giant.
It's cool, right?
It was so dope.
Wow.
It was like, yo, I'm in China and they worship, as a Laker fan, like, yo, Kobe is huge.
But I mean, like,
And then so many other athletes like LeBron and all that, to take that away from a culture is just because of a country. Is this?
It's crazy, right?
crazy,
And it's
yeah.
like when I was used to do business meetings, if the conversation ever died down with these Chinese guys, in Chinese, 55, 60-year-old dudes smoking cigarettes, just drinking booze at lunch. If it ever died down, you'd be like, oh, what do you think about the Rockets this year? And like, boom, everybody had 10 opinions, you know? I mean, they knew everything. They would be like, oh, like the Kings need a new backup center.
Wow.
And,
Yeah, it's huge, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's also interesting because we'll see if Chinese people are cool with it just going away. My guess is they probably will.
There probably will be, because of the information that they're being fed.
Yeah, because they think it's country over,
But it
leisure.
It just
whatever.
shows
And it's
you.
also the West.
Yeah.
It's also
Yeah.
the U.S. You're talking about mainland Chinese?
Mainland Chinese
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
If
Yeah.
NBA disappears,
Yeah.
I think they'll still be like, you know what, it's worth it. We can't have these people weighing in on our private.
Correct.
And you know what it's
Correct.
similar to? Like, obviously, the media is controlled in America also, but as Americans, we have the opportunity to seek out other sources and find out the truth. Like, have you ever had a conversation with somebody who just watches Fox News?
Yeah.
Like, they see the world and
Yeah.
they see everything in the U.S. in a totally different way. Or you might talk to somebody who just watches CNN,
Yeah.
a liberal.
Yeah, and they're freaking out all the time. They're like, "Oh my God, did you see what happened today?"
Exactly.
It's like, all right, we need to relax a little bit.
So you kind of know
Tweets
that
don't
the
dictate
truth,
policy.
we have the ability to find the truth is somewhere in the
In,
middle.
in the middle, yeah.
And we also have the ability to be like, you know what, screw all this. I'm going to check BBC. That's a whole different country.
Exactly.
But it's in English still.
Yes,
We
exactly.
can read it.
And they'll give us a whole
Yeah.
different perspective. And I just think a lot of times, even when you come to the entertainment industry, that's why it's important for us to tell our story, especially people of color, and try to control that as much as we can, because you don't have somebody trying to manipulate or taint the honesty or the truth of the vision. And I think what happens a lot of times with movies, like they'll go, oh, black people just want to see a certain type of movie, and they'll make that. It's like, no, that's not true. Those are the movies that you kind of let go through.
Yeah.
You know, we're not just one thing. So I just think it's just crazy to hear that there's a country that's totally being controlled and manipulated by the government. And
but
the
even
media.
saying that, like, I don't want to say it's every Chinese person. You know, there's a percentage of the people who are educated and do check out other stuff, and they're like, this is nuts.
But
they're not allowed to say that.
Exactly. And the amount of effort it would take for them to get that information too. You know,
It's a lot. It's a lot of, like, a lot to jump through.
You know, where we have access to it. You know,
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why when we're
Especially
talking
in 2019, just that it's
2019,
We're,
dude.
2020.
I would say
we're 2020 basically.
This is the most interesting sports story, I think, in like, I don't know, a
and
decade.
most people don't really understand, you know, the complexity of it, what's really happening over there. But again, when we're going back to shooting the special in Shanghai, you know, when me and Turner sat down, and Andy, when we talk about how can I shoot this special in China, it all started from, okay, you know, stand-up is illegal in China, so we got to start from
It would have been illegal.
Yeah.
So we were looking for
Yeah.
rooms. I remember going around looking for theaters that would let us do it off the books, off the record, because they couldn't legally. We couldn't legally have the show because you're doing free speech
Exactly.
to a crowd of people. Where
in
you're saying
China,
whatever you want. In
saying
China.
whatever the fuck you want
And
to
the
say.
whole thing was, well, we'll film it. Well, will they find out when it actually comes out? Yeah, but we'll be gone by then.
Yeah.
But Andy wasn't going to be gone by
Yeah,
then.
exactly.
You were, and I might have been
exactly.
at that point.
But I really wanted to shoot it there, but it was just so many hurdles to try to overcome to make that happen, like getting permits and finding what, like you said, finding people to do it off the books. How do we promote and advertise to get people to come to a venue that they never normally would go to?
When we couldn't really advertise.
We couldn't really
It was all
advertise,
like gonna be like,
finding the right
So it
size.
was sort of like a speakeasy.
totally. It was
would've
like
been-
text message based.
yeah,
and all
man.
that.
It was
Yeah.
but
So it
just-
could have ended up. The title could have ended up a black guy arrested in Shanghai,
Yeah, it could have.
which would have worked maybe even better. By the way, the
Yeah.
story would have
Live
been
from
fantastic.
Cell Block D.
Oh, he don't know. I come here. He don't tell me. He said I can say what I want. Oh.
Wait, can I promote my album real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. First of all, I have a podcast, Lost in America. It's kind of about
been a
me
guest
coming
on it.
back.
Yeah.
Ruben's been on Lost in America. It's on
Okay.
iTunes everywhere weekly. And my album, Live from the Friars Club, just came out. It's on iTunes and everything
Well,
else.
that sounds very
Sirius
white.
XM.
Yeah, and tell people how
Well,
to.
that's
Friars
it.
Club in New York City.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that? What's the difference?
No, it's still white. I'm just
Oh,
saying.
yeah.
Turner gonna own
I
his
just got
whiteness.
excited.
I'm writing
So-
his.
so-
I'm writing his coattails with that white thing earlier.
So
that's all.
so Turner, tell them where to find you on social media.
At Turner Sparks on Instagram, at Turner B Sparks on Twitter, but TurnerSparks.com, and that has everything there.
Yeah, turnersparks.com.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank you,
I love
guys.
this dude,
yeah,
man.
it was great, man.
He always
great
took
stories.
good
Yeah.
care of me when I went to China, and we've remained friends. And this has been great, man. Thanks for doing the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, you guys. Thank you for watching the best of everything with Turner Sparks and my brother, my co-host from another mother, the one and only, the Portuguese assassin.
Dirty Sanchowitz.
Oh wait, we'll
and
talk about
associates.
the reunion next week. I want to
Yeah,
hear.
we'll do the reunion.
I wanna hear about
I'll
the
get
reunion.
some videos ready. Some
Hey,
stuff. ready.
Candy.
You know,
All right.
he doesn't talk like
Thank
that.
you guys for listening.
He keeps doing my dad like he does not talk like that.
You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and on my YouTube page.
Yeah.
Yeah, just Google the best of everything
Okay.
with Ruben Paul and Johnny Sanchez. Thank you guys for
Thanks.
listening and watching.
Yes.
We out.
We out.
Ruby motherfucking Tuesdays.
This show is all about diversity and bringing everyone together. know you're gonna see at Ruby Tuesday.